Welcome back to The Explainer. Now, the most terrifying thing the military pulled out of crashed UFOs wasn't the anti-gravity engine. It was the liquid that piloted the ship. Today we are looking at something that sounds like it's straight out of a dystopian sci-fi novel, but according to the source material, is actually documented in a trail of very real unclassified patents and leaked intelligence files. We're exploring the dark, clinical, and frankly terrifying biomechanical reality of human-flown anti-gravity craft. We're talking about the classified black-budget aerospace programs and how they treat the human body not as some heroic pilot, but as a fragile, milking wet-ware component trapped inside a machine that completely defies the laws of physics.
Okay, let's dive into this. The source material outlines an absolutely horrifying reality. You see, when you build a machine that manipulates gravity and literally tears a hole in space-time, the human body is, well, it's the weakest link by far. The military doesn't view the crew as passengers to be kept comfortable. Not at all. To actually survive inside these craft, the source states that the pilot effectively becomes a solid-state organism. We're going to break down exactly what that means and the extreme, almost unthinkable lengths the military-industrial complex has supposedly gone to just to keep human biology functioning inside an impossible machine.
To really wrap your head around this, you have to completely throw away everything you know about aerodynamics. There are no wings, no jet fuel, no air resistance in the way we traditionally understand it. The ultimate question the aerospace syndicate faced wasn't how to make the ship fly. No, it was how do you survive a machine that is literally trying to crush you to death with its own gravitational forces.
Section 1. The lethal flaw. The very first major hurdle is the engine itself. The heart of craft, like the infamous TR-3B, is the magnetic field disruptor, or MFD. According to the texts, which reference Dr. Salvatore Pace's U.S. Navy mass reduction patent, this involves a toroid of supercooled mercury plasma spinning at a blistering 60,000 RPM. This creates a massive electromagnetic field that disrupts local spacetime, effectively reducing the craft's inertial mass. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. The human-built mass reduction drive works imperfectly. It bleeds a massive amount of lethal kinetic energy right through the hull and directly into the pilot's seat.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer brute force violence happening mere yards from the crew. The plasma inside the MFD is supercooled to minus 150 degrees Celsius and pressurized to an unbelievable 250,000 atmospheres. I mean, think about that. This is essentially a spinning nuclear anomaly trapped in a magnetic bubble, and it is constantly on the verge of tearing the ship and everyone inside it completely apart.
Because the mass reduction field is imperfect, the craft experiences what's called inertial bleed-through. So, while the ship might be pulling some impossible hypersonic maneuver, the pilot inside is suddenly slammed with up to 55 Gs of physical force. To put that in perspective, a normal human cardiovascular system completely fails well before 10 Gs. At 55 Gs, air compresses, your ribcage would collapse, and internal organs would literally be crushed to liquid.
Section 2. The fluid cockpit. So how did the military actually solve this lethal physics problem? They couldn't change the engine, so they had to change the human environment into a sort of fluidic womb. If you're picturing a Top Gun aviator in a leather seat holding a joystick, shatter that illusion right now. These ships do not have steering wheels, wires, or joysticks. A conventional pilot relies on air, hydraulics, and physical reflexes. A TR-3B operator is stripped bare, covered in biometric sensors, and completely submerged in a pressurized capsule. But they aren't just floating in water, they are submerging themselves into a sentient, programmable liquid. So the crucial point is how they actually survive the immense pressure. The source points to U.S. Patent 4925133, which mandates pharmacologically sedating the pilot to completely override the mammalian drowning reflex. While the pilot's hands and body interact with that programmable matter, their lungs are mechanically flooded with perfluorodecaline. This is an incompressible synthetic liquid nearly twice as heavy as water that holds triple the oxygen of human blood. Because liquid cannot be compressed, the extreme kinetic shockwave passes right through the fluid and the pilot's fluid-filled lungs without crushing them. But it actually gets darker. The pilot's biology is fully integrated into the ship's plumbing in a closed-circuit alchemical loop. The pilot exhales toxic carbon dioxide into the liquid. A reactor converts that into methane gas. Then the nuclear reactor turns that methane into plasma, and magnetic fields blast that plasma out to steer the ship. The human body's breath is, quite literally, recycled into rocket fuel for the magnetic thrusters.
Section 3. The fly-by-thought interface.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the steering actually works. With the pilot rendered physically immobile in a tank of heavy liquid, how do they control anything? Well, mechanical joysticks are utterly useless when you're dealing with microsecond fluctuations in a chaotic space-time bubble. Leaked intelligence files reveal the use of programmable matter, often referred to in the black budget world as black goo. This substance is a neuro-reactive, programmable ferrofluid. When the liquid-filled biological drones, like the PLFs or Greys, step into these ships, they submerge their hands or bodies into this sentient liquid metal. The fluid itself acts as a quantum biological interface, mapping the brain with magnetoencephalography and connecting the pilot's brainwaves directly to the engine. While legacy human systems used clunky brain-computer interface helmets with EEG nets, modern defense contractors and DARPA are actively patenting programmable smart dust and magnetic ferrofluids to recreate this exact alien wetware. It's a two-way street. The ferrofluid reads the pilot's intent and then uses transcranial magnetic stimulation to send haptic telemetry data back into the pilot's sensory cortex. The pilot literally feels the engine's telemetry in their own mind. The pilot and the ship literally become a single merged biological organism.
Because of this direct visceral link, the pilot doesn't simply think commands like turn left. That's way too slow. They must enter a deeply coherent, meditative, Gnostic state. They visualize the vector, and through the sentient liquid metal, become the craft. This requires absolute emotional control. If the pilot feels panic or fear, their biofield decoheres, the engine's torsion field collapses, and the ship is instantly destroyed.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 4. The Crown of Thorns.
This direct neural link exacts a terrifying physical toll on the human operators. The system demands an absolute merging of man and machine, but the human brain simply was not designed for this. The clinical damages are severe. The direct magnetic interfacing causes scalp microburns. Furthermore, under Faraday's law of induction, the massive oscillating magnetic fields of the engine induced rogue electrical currents directly into the brain tissue. Over time, this violently depolarizes neurons, literally shears delicate microvasculature, and leads to severe neurological burnout and early-onset dementia. You're basically frying the brain. As the texts bluntly state, humanity is a biological liability in the secret space program. The Arconic Aerospace Syndicate doesn't view these operators as heroic explorers pushing the boundaries of flight. Not at all. They are viewed as fragile, melting biological CPUs that simply can't survive the machine long-term.
Section 5. The Unmanned Future.
This massive, unavoidable biological casualty rate forced a major shift. Tracing the chronological evolution of the craft, we see the deep state was ultimately forced to abandon manned flights for their most advanced platforms. In the 1980s, we had the crude, high-casualty ARVs, or fluxliners. By the 1990s, the TR-3B emerged, requiring those grotesque, liquid-breathing suits and programmable matter. But by the 2020s, the sources point to the deployment of craft like the CL-957. These are fully autonomous, solid-state drones driven by room-temperature quantum AI processors. Which leaves us with this final provocative question. Did the Aerospace Syndicate remove humanity from the cockpit simply because silicon is faster and cheaper, or was it because the human brain literally melts and hemorrhages when you repeatedly force it to fly through a polarized quantum vacuum? It's a dark, visceral truth to ponder about the hidden cost of our classified technological advancement. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.